All right, so this is coolant. Its main purpose is to transfer heat away from your engine, effectively cooling it. And this is Kyle, who will quickly talk about our product and the effects it can have in the industry.
Hi, I'm Kyle. I'm a mechanic here at Laymet for the last 6 years, and I believe that FluxPods will revolutionize the industry with eliminating toxic spills.
So as Kyle touched on there's a huge problem with risks of spilling within garages today. These spills can cost upwards of $15,000 to $20,000 per spill. The next biggest issue is the toxic chemicals involved. So main issue being here the ethylene glycol. This can break down, corrode, and rust the metal within your radiator. Our last big problem is as you can tell by this jug here, the big size of it. This takes up limited sales space within these small garages, as well as a lot of inventory in the back. So we are FluxPods, revolutionizing the automotive industry through innovative solutions, and these are our solutions. Our first step will be to replace ethylene glycol with propylene glycol. This will eliminate any and all toxic chemicals involved, so it won't break down that radiator. Our next big step will be to break down the coolant itself into a powder form. This will do one of two things in that it drastically reduces the size, as you can see going from this jug here to a powder form. It also eliminates any chance of spills. And this is Anthony, and he'll talk about our value proposition.
So with our solutions, we become non-toxic and non-corrosive to radiators. Secondly, through its condensed form, we cut down on any contingency costs and increase sales per square foot. Lastly, we provide the most value to our consumers by just selling our product at $5. Moving on to our early adopters, who are independently owned automotive garages. These garages are small and plentiful, with around 70 garages in Calgary alone. We interviewed 12 of these garages, and 11 of them said that they would actually use our product. These garages also want to reduce risk of spills and reduce costs while increasing their sales per square foot. We believe that talking to these garages door to door and approaching and through word of mouth, we will gain traction in the market and hopefully appeal to larger chains. Next is Curtis, who will talk about our business model.
Yeah, so our product is primarily broken down into two costs: material and labor cost and transit cost. Purchasing materials and the direct labor used in making our product make up the majority of our production cost. And since the pods are so small, transit costs average out to only 43 cents per liter. And in total, the cost to manufacture and deliver our product comes out to $2.17 per liter. We will be selling our product in bulk to garages, as not only is selling in bulk more efficient, but garages also have a significantly higher demand for coolant compared to your average consumer. FluxPods will be marketed at $5 per liter, therefore generating our company a percent profit of 130%. Here's Derek to finish our presentation.
We are asking for $120,000 because we believe our unfair advantages actually reduce our startup costs by roughly $50,000. The majority of this money will go towards research and development, ensuring all chemicals perform efficiently in powder form, as well as creating a viable product for testing and eventual sale. This is where our unfair advantages come into play. By having access to William Alexander, a PhD in chemistry, who can help with any chemical aspects of the product, as well as Kyle Trail, a heavy-duty mechanic who can help test and evaluate performance. The remaining money will go towards marketing and eventually bringing the product to the public. For our next steps, we will be completing R&D, as I mentioned, and then look to establish a manufacturing warehouse once we are ready to go to market. We believe that a goal of being in 10 garages by the end of our first year will help establish market traction, as Anthony stated. After we have established our reputation, we will then approach large dealerships and pursue licensing opportunities for FluxPods. Thank you, and we now open the floor to any questions you may have.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. Good presentation, guys. Just wondering, can you give me a sense of the spillage that is occurring today in garages? I don't know if I caught the volume there that's occurring.
So we couldn't quite, from what I remember, we couldn't quite find any stats available in Canada on volume. Okay. That was mainly through primary research that we learned from workers at garages. Stories of, upon delivery through the tanker truck, employee mishap having and causing a large spill. So
how's the mechanic going to get this mixed?
So the current way they do it in garages now is they, like I said, have it delivered by tanker truck, and then after that they do mix water and do various tests to determine the pH. So they would essentially order a product, it would show up in a powdered brick form, and they would, since it's completely water soluble, they would put them into their mixing tanks and then perform the necessary tests to determine the pH and other quantities.
How does your price of $5 compare with current pricing of the liquid solution?
So those are obviously what we could find through secondary research. Those are consumer offerings. So obviously on the B2B scale, it would be much lower, but it's still quite lower than any of the current offerings, and those are all propylene glycol coolants.
And this is the B2C market?
Yes, this is on the B2C market, so we clearly understand that it would be a bit of a smaller margin.
Would a garage need to buy any additional equipment to mix this in terms of testing it and tanks and that sort of thing? Like, is there any additional cost?
I mean, not likely that we have foreseen yet. That's part of the reason why our R&D costs eat up so much, is that it would be so crucial to determine the consistency of our product. And then we believe if it's completely soluble and it can be proven consistently, they shouldn't have to purchase any further equipment for mixing purposes.
And just to add on to what Jake said there, many garages as well have a ton of distilled water just for numerous purposes. This is what they would mix up with the coolant or with the pods itself. So they've already been supplied with all of the distilled water, and they wouldn't need to purchase additional water, because every garage that I went into, they had probably like 60 to 70 liters of distilled water that was just sitting there. That was just for like emergency cases in which they would flush engines, they would do all these things with the distilled water that they can't have the impurities in the water with it.
Usually the manufacturers of vehicles have different types of metals within their coolant system, so there's a whole variety of different coolants that are on the market.
Yeah,
for
you're
specific
totally correct.
applications. So how will this work?
So the big one there is that it has an effect when it's the long-lasting coolant. So the regular life of the coolant, that doesn't actually break down the radiator or the different types of metals. You are correct in that there's aluminum, hard iron, all those different types. Because we're switching over to propylene glycol, which isn't toxic, it's actually in your ice cream. So the fact that it doesn't destroy your intestines, let's say, it's not going to harm any metal or any properties within an engine itself.
Does the change to propylene glycol change the shelf life or half-life of the...
Nope, not at all, and especially because it's a powder form, not in the liquid. Typical coolant has a shelf life of about 5 years. We did try to research that a little bit, and what we found was that powder itself just lasts longer because it doesn't have the water in it. So just off a brief estimation, I would say it's infinite, but definitely more than 5 years, which is, they would definitely use it up by then.